3, A Realistic Epic Fantasy Adventure by Wdowski. Note: for your full enjoyment, be sure to read or listen to the end and continue to the next chapter. Chapter 21. As the sun rose, Pixa automatically came out of her deep sleep. She looked to Dale on the other side of the tent, who was still sleeping. She felt a warm feeling that he was there all night watching over her. Keeping to her promise, she flew to him to wake him. "Good morning, Dale." Dale opened his eyes to be greeted by the vision of her beautiful and lovely face. He instinctively smiled at her, and then heard the sound of the men already at work outside his tent. "You let me sleep again?" He was a bit upset as he hurriedly got up and dressed. "No, I woke you as soon as I did at sunrise," she defended herself. Walking out of his tent, he saw Chopson barking out commands, directing the men to carry all the raft elements down to the river to be assembled. Dale approached him. "Why didn't you wake me?" "We just started. I was up just before sunrise." Chopson replied. "Careful with that!" he yelled at one of the men, grabbing one end of a cured pine log to bring to the river's edge. "I want to help this time," Dale insisted. Chopson turned to him and pointed to a small wooden barrel that had been unpacked from one of the pack horses. "There, take the barrel of nails and grab a hammer. Once they tie the logs together, you can start nailing the wood planks on top of them." One of the pack boys was about to pick up the barrel of nails. Dale stopped him. "I'll take that. You can start taking down and packing away the tents. We'll need them on the other side." "Aye, Major Dale." The teenage boy gave him a quick salute. Field-promoted head chef approached Dale with a hot cup of tea, handing it to Dale before he bent down to pick up the small barrel of nails. "Tea, Major Dale." "It's John, yes." Dale took the tea. The teenager smiled. "Yes, Major Dale." "Thanks. Actually, I needed this." He drank the tea. "Oh, and you can just call me Dale. The major part is not necessary." "Yes, Major Dale." Noon. They had completed 4 solid river-worthy rafts. Taking a break, they sat on the many tree stumps they had created from the trees they had cut down. John and the 2 other boys served them a hot lunch. As the men ate, the boys cleaned and packed away the cooking gear to be ready for the crossing. "I want to be on the first raft to make it across." Josh insisted. "I can row and handle the stringing of the rope across the river at the same time. The great author has written me great advantages. You should use them." "We shall, Josh. Thank you for volunteering." 5 more should make the first crossing with you," Dale responded. "Chopson, who do you think would be best to row?" Chopson, finishing the hot stew on his tin plate, looked about at the men. "I think I should be leading the first raft. I am the only one here with experience crossing a river." "Bridges don't count?" joked one of the men. Chopson smiled at the man. "No, using a bridge doesn't count. But thanks for volunteering, Marketson." He threw an oar to the man. "Glad to, Chopson." Catching the oar, Marketson began doing some curls with it to show off his bicep. "Should be easy," he smiled at Chopson, feeling the light weight of the wood paddle. Paddling against a moving current is not that easy. Water gives you a lot more resistance than air. Chopson teased Marketson for showing off. As the men laughed, Chopson became serious and addressed the men. "Do not wear your chainmail when making the crossing or your weapons. Just in case you do fall in, I don't want any of you going down like an anvil. We'll carry all armor and weapons across separately." "Good idea," Dale agreed. "I want to help in taking the first raft across." Zup volunteered. "I think it is important we secure the western bank, while the rest of you make the crossing. We could use 2 more rowers for the first crossing. The remaining trips will be 2 men and 2 horses each, with supplies separate. Those waiting for the others can start setting up a campsite on the western bank." Chopson then looked to Dale for approval. "If that is okay with you." "Sounds all good, Chopson." Dale answered. "You are in command of the crossing. We will all follow your lead." Dale looked at the others that all nodded in agreement. "You're in charge, Chopson." The spearman cobbler spoke up. "I want to be a rower for the first crossing. Count me in too." Bowman, one of the archers, also volunteered. Crossing. They had tied the long rope around a strong tree on their side of the river. At the end of each raft, Chopson had installed waist-high posts. On top of each post he nailed upside-down horseshoes, creating loops that the rope could be threaded through. The 4 rafts were set one in front of the other. It was as if they built a small floating dock. The 6 men with their oars crossed the first 3 rafts until they reached the last raft. Josh, with an oar in his lower arms, took hold of the massive rope with his top arms, in order for him to control feeding the rope out as they made the crossing. The first raft pushed off as all 6 men rowed at a bit of an angle upriver to counter the slight current. Dale was feeling stressed watching them as they made their way across. He was starting to think he should have been on the first crossing. After 15 minutes, the first raft had made it across without any problems. Josh took the rope, threading it through the loop on the post on the front of the raft. He then carried the remaining rope to a nearby tree and tied the rope tightly around it. Chopson grabbed the rope and tested the tension that it was secure. He then waved to Dale on the opposite bank that all was ready for the other rafts. Dale ordered the men to begin moving the first 6 horses on the next 3 rafts. They placed some of the gear in the center of the rafts. Once loaded, 2 men on each raft began pulling on the rope to transport the loaded rafts across the great river. Reaching the other side, they unloaded the rafts. Once unloaded, the last raft became the first raft, and 1 man on each raft pulled the empty rafts back to the opposite bank to gather more men, horses, and gear. Josh had volunteered to make all the return crossings, since he did not tire like the human men, who would circulate after each trip. Rested men would take over and make the return trips, so the men that just crossed could take a break. Marketson learned quickly that pulling a raft across a river against a current gave him a much better workout than doing a few curls with an oar. Late afternoon. Dale and Josh were on the last raft with the last 2 horses. Since they had not lost a single man or horse overboard, Dale decided not to remove his vest or gun belt with his sheathed sword. He and Josh pulled the raft behind the other 3 rafts. Looking back at the East Bank campsite, Dale noticed they left a lot of evidence they had been this way. The burnt-out campfires and dozens of new tree stumps, the makeshift sawhorses, wood shavings, and most of the tools they brought with them. To his right, Pixa and Bruce flew across the water about 6 feet above the surface. Pixa smiled at Dale as she kept pace with him as he and Josh pulled the raft across. Suddenly, a large 6-foot monster of a fish jumped out of the water, grabbing Bruce in flight. Locking its jaws onto Bruce, it fell back into the river with a loud splash, pulling him under, never to be seen again. Josh, still holding onto the rope with his lower arms, used his upper right arm to draw an arrow from his quiver to prepare his hunting bow. Dale drew his Glock, his eyes affixed on Pixa. "Fly to us! Get away from the water!" Devastated with the loss of Bruce, she began crying and beat her wings so fast they could hardly be seen. She flew as fast as she could to the safety of Dale and the raft. Just before she reached the raft, the giant river fish jumped out again. Seeing Pixa as a large dragonfly that made the mistake of flying too close to the surface, the fish now wanted to make a quick meal of Pixa. Josh loosed his arrow while Dale fired his Glock. The fish fell back into the river with an even louder splash. It soon bobbed up to the surface dead. They both had hit the fish, protecting Pixa. In a frenzy, other fish in the river took the opportunity to devour the giant dead fish. As they fed, the water around the giant looked as if it was boiling. Pixa, finally reaching the raft, wrapped her arms and legs around Dale's left arm. She buried her head into his sleeve, unable to stop crying. Dale did not know how to respond to her. He wanted to comfort her, to tell her she was safe now, the danger was gone. But the fact was she had just lost Bruce, her brother. Dusk. Everyone and everything were across the great river. With the shocking loss of Bruce, the new camp was extremely somber. Pixa looked at the calm waters of the river and said a few words in her sing-song fairy language. Her crying had not stopped, but was more subdued than earlier. When she finished saying her goodbyes to her brother, Chopson stepped up to her. His eyes were tearing. He felt extremely guilty for her loss. "You have no idea how sorry I am, Pixa. I never thought of the river fish as a threat. They never attack men. I should have thought of it and insisted you both took the rafts across. I am so very sorry. If there is anything I can do for you, please let me know." Pixa turned to him. Choking up, she forced a smile for him. "Thank you, Chopson. Your words mean much to me. You should not blame yourself. What happened is no one's fault. If anyone is to blame, it is me. I should have realized the threat to us by crossing such open, deep waters. I mean it, Pixa, I still blame myself. The safe crossing for all of our party was my responsibility. Please do not blame yourself. None of us know everything that can happen in this world." Josh approached them. He looked out to the river and then up to the sky. "Great author, we acknowledge your taking Bruce has a greater purpose in your narrative. We know he will live in your great canon as one of your most memorable, gentle, and good characters. He will never be forgotten." "Thank you, Josh," Pixa whimpered. Zup and every man and boy all approached Pixa and gave their heartfelt condolences to the Fairy Queen. Their kindness and sincere love touched her deeply. She then turned to Dale. "May I sleep in your tent again tonight?" "You do not need to ask, Pixa." She noticed that his lower lip trembled slightly. He too felt guilty for what had happened. His seeing her hurting hurt him even more. She flew to him and placed a kiss on his forehead before she flew into his tent, just as the sun finally set behind the trees.